definition of PTSD is an anxiety disorder associated with serious traumatic events and characterized by such symptoms as survivor guilt, reliving the trauma and dreams, numbness and lack of involvement with reality,
My first
or
question
recurrent
is
thoughts
for
and
you:
images.
how does PTSD develop?
Well, PTSD is developed. You have veterans who are in the theater. What we meant by theater is guys who are in the war zone. You develop after a certain, because it's so, everything that's happening in the war zone, it's so unnatural, it's so uncommon. It's not something you go through every day.
Right.
Okay, so when you experience that, it's just come as a shock to you. Okay, and then your reality start meshing up with fantasy type thing. Okay.
All right. And for my second question is, how is PTSD assessed?
It is assessed once that individual veteran comes back, and they go through a process by doctors. They got psychologists who sit with them and talk to them and say and ask them a series of questions. And if they answer those questions, or they didn't answer certain questions, or they answered a different way that they expected, and then they fall under that category that, okay, they experience it based on their mood, their depressed mood, and if they don't want to be with somebody, they just want to sit by themselves and not be bothered, that sort of thing. Yeah.
All right. So how common is PTSD?
I'll come. Repeat that again.
How common is it?
How common is it?
Yeah.
But there's a misconception. There's something called a PTS, and then you have PTSD. PTS is post-traumatic stress. That's something like everyday individuals. We have stress. Right. You have school stress, like you guys. I mean, you have stress like when you have finals coming up, and you have to study for a test, and you have to do things that you have to do. You study for, you stress out, right? Or if you need to buy something, you broke. You don't have, enough to buy there. It stress you out because you need that something. So it is common, okay? But what happens is the difference between PTS and PTSD is that when you have those symptoms and it keep recurring, your depression, little things set you off. You keep doing the same thing over and over again. You feel in that depressed mode. You just don't want to do things. You want to be. You just want to avoid everybody, and you just want to be by yourself. You can't keep a job because you get distracted in your job. Little noises distract you. That sort of thing.
All right. So, what are the consequences associated with PTSD?
Consequences is that, especially when it's diagnosed, and people can actually misunderstand. It can be misunderstood sometimes. PTSD, they're capable of doing anything. Those who suffer PTSD, and that's the misconception: is that if you have PTSD, you're dangerous. Don't have them here, right? No, that's not true. If you have PTSD, it's so they can do anything, but the only problem is the consequences is that when people misunderstand PTSD, then they isolate those individuals.
Right.
They force them to be even more isolated because they can't trust them.
Out, and I looked at 10 fingers, 10 toes. I was okay, so I thought.
It didn't hit me till 9/11, and I didn't know it. And my first reaction was, why now? And why so many years later?
I had no idea that I had post-traumatic stress disorder.
At the time, I really didn't know what PTSD was.
So I would sleep with a knife in my hand and my weapon on my chest, and any noise that would happen, I would jump up.
The way I reacted to situations was very aggressive. My voice would be at what most would perceive a yell. People would ask me, why are you getting so mad? And I'm like, I'm not mad. This is just how I talk.
It makes you not want to do nothing. It makes you want to stay secluded in your home.
I was raging. I was very, very angry. There were fights, just a lot of negative experiences, and I had no idea where it was all coming from.
I was doing an absurd amount of alcohol and drugs. I was trying to alter my reality, my consciousness, because my consciousness was not very attractive.
I remember going to the Naval Hospital, and they had this giant chart that said all these symptoms of PTSD. And I looked at it, and my heart just broke, because I was reading the whole list, and I was experiencing every single one of those symptoms, every last one of them.
My wife finally says, you have to go to the doctors. Family physician said, you're going to go to the VA, or I'm going to take you.
The VA was very good. They had some people that were there that were trained to help me onto that road to recovery.
For the first time ever, I felt like, whoa, I can actually talk to a professional that's been in my shoes. That, sympathy is one thing, but empathy is actually when somebody has walked through those shoes and they can identify with what you're going through.
I felt that I was the only one until I started connecting with other veterans and I heard their stories. Take a breathe.
Therapy is such an important process. It's very hard to shrink yourself. Your mind is so nimble, you really can't, you can't get in there between. But sometimes we can see our problems in someone else.
They taught me how to deal with my problems and how to reduce the nightmares, how to reduce the anger and all the frustration.
After I started receiving counseling, I was able to better recognize my triggers. So I was able to understand, you know what, I better step aside, take a breather, walk away.
Now I can get through the day without having a flashback, and I was finally sleeping through the night where I could actually function the next morning.
Through counseling and meeting with other veterans, I found a common bond, that camaraderie, that esprit de corps that we're taught while we wear the uniform, that is still available on the outside.
There's always going to be problems in life. I mean, that's what life is. But you can eliminate some of those, or you can minimize some of those issues.
I still have my peaks and valleys, but I know how to cope with them. There's no way to do it by yourself. I've tried that road and it doesn't work. There's people out there and resources out there to help. So just take advantage of it.
You got to find that link with somebody that'll make you let it go.